So today, I don't get to talk about the fun stuff I usually get to talk about, which is, I know it's not fun for most people, but the disease-animal food connection is what I typically expound on and my specialty. But what I really want to do, and why this conference is different than going to a veg fest or something like a veg fest, I didn't want people to go home excited and not knowing exactly what to do to prevent deficiencies. Because you'll end up not feeling well and you won't know why, and you'll think it's because you need animal protein. And you will go to doctors who know nothing because they get 4 hours of training on average in this country on nutrition. And that's the total truth, and that's being generous. So you'll go to them and you'll say, I don't feel well, and they'll say, well, what are you eating? What are you doing? And you'll say, oh, I went plant-based. And then they're gonna tell you, oh, you gotta start eating animals. You gotta go back to eating meat. That's why you don't feel well, because they don't know, right? So we can't really fault them. We can't be mad about it. They don't know what they don't know. So we're gonna talk about the first one. Now this is a huge one. This is what I believe is at pandemic levels, not just here in our country, but around the world, is a vitamin D deficiency. So our primary source of vitamin D is the sun. That's where every animal, human and other animals, get their vitamin D. That is the primary place. Of course, many of us don't spend a lot of time in the sun, so we would get it from the animal flesh. We would get it from the animals themselves, from them spending time in the sun. Now, here's some reasons why vitamin D is so absolutely crucial. It literally plays a role in every organ in your body, okay? You have receptors in every organ of your body for vitamin D. That's how important it is. So it's literally involved in everything that goes on throughout your body. It also increases your calcium and magnesium absorption, which are so crucial for so many diseases that we want to prevent, and for osteoporosis. So, that's the thing, is people think that they can just take a calcium supplement and avoid osteoporosis, but they don't realize that there are so many other things that play a part in that. There are so many other elements that you really have to have. Nothing works on its own in our bodies. It's really important that people understand that everything is totally interconnected. You can't just have one component and think that you're going to be healthy. You need all the other factors playing their part. It's like just hearing a violin. I mean, you're missing the rest of the symphony. So it's very important. Vitamin D reduces the amount of calcium lost when you urinate. So that's another way that it prevents osteoporosis, when you have a good amount of vitamin D. Obviously required for strong bones, so all goes hand in hand. It also regulates your insulin level. So for people who are maybe pre-diabetic or struggling with diabetes, and I know tomorrow you're going to hear from Dr. Angie Sadeghi, and I love how she puts it. She says, she tells her patients, you're not pre-diabetic. It's like being kind of pregnant. You're either diabetic or you're not. So I think it's so funny when she says that, because yes, you're either in health or you're in disease. It's the way it goes. Vitamin D strengthens the immune system. Everybody really thinks vitamin C is so crucial, but D plays a huge, huge role. It is a huge factor. Vitamin D deficiency is a huge factor in cancer. Very important, obviously, when you're pregnant, for your baby to develop properly in its bones, and it reduces inflammation. So you are going to hear that. That's going to be a key theme throughout this entire weekend. You're going to hear every speaker pretty much talk about inflammation. And we're talking about internal inflammation, which is the basis of all disease. So wherever you have inflammation, you will have disease. You may not have it yet, but it's coming. You just haven't been diagnosed yet, or you haven't developed the symptoms. And likewise, if you look at someone who has a disease, if you test their blood and you look at the biomarkers in their bloodstream, they will have the biomarkers for inflammation. So they're interconnected. They absolutely cannot be separated. They go hand in hand. Vitamin D supports the brain, our nervous system, influences, as I said, not just cancer in general, but it actually changes the way our DNA expresses itself. And I'm going to talk about that more tomorrow. I have another presentation tomorrow, but I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about how we can literally change how our DNA expresses. So we can carry a gene for something. We can have a lineage that is full of cancer. It does not mean that we're destined to get it. Okay, we absolutely hold the keys in our hands up to 95% of the time. So it's obviously, as I mentioned, it's linked to every disease, including cancer. So it's very, very important. It does improve mood. So all of these things that people, don't realize. So here are some other sources of vitamin D, albeit they're not the best. Okay, they're really, you want to get sun. I know that goes against everything that we've been preached on for decades, to avoid the sun. You don't want to have sun, you're going to get skin cancer. It's so counterintuitive. It has a lot to do with the chemicals and the stuff that we slather on ourselves so that we don't get burned. But these are some other sources. So, of course, fortified non-dairy milk. I'm going to explain, though, why you want to be really careful with this, and supplements, too. You want to be very cautious if you're trying to get your vitamin D from these sources. It's not working. So there's two types of D that we're going to get. D2 is what you're typically going to find in plants. That's what's going to be available in most plant form. This is not a great source. It's not the most bioavailable. It's not the one that our body really needs for the disease prevention and for all the good stuff. Okay, so it is an inferior source. You're going to find this in a lot of vegan products, a D2. Okay, so unless it's specifically noted. The thing with D3, though, this is what you have to really be careful about. D3 is almost always from an animal source. Unless it specifically says that it's vegan, it's from an animal source. And it could be from multiple animals. As it says, it could be from the lanolin from sheep's wool, it could be from pig skin, it could be from cows. They don't even know because the supplement manufacturer actually sources it from multiple factory farms. Okay, so this is the byproduct of the animals that are killed. So they can get literally just hundreds of different animals all together. They just collect all of that and put it into the capsules. So if you are taking a vitamin D3 supplement and it does not say vegan, that's what you're taking. You're actually accidentally ingesting animals. So it is a superior source. You are going to find this in a lot of things, including orange juice. A lot of people drink orange juice and they think they're doing something really great for their health. But if you're vegan, you are literally drinking this animal skin or the lanolin from the sheep's wool. So you are taking in animal foods, animal substances. Look for a vitamin D. This is a trademark that they've come out with called VitaShine. So this is a D3, so this is the type that your body most needs, that your body can use and is most bioavailable, but it is completely vegan. So that's what you want to look for. And there's more and more products coming on the market every day, so it's not like it's really hard to find and source. I mean, you can go on Amazon and find a really great vitamin D, D3 that's also plant-based. And you want to get, on average, 2,000 IUs a day. If you're deficient, you want to take that up to 5,000. You don't want to go over 10,000. It can be dangerous. So, keep it if your doctor says you're a little low. And this is really important too. Keep this in mind. When your doctor is testing you and they're telling you that, oh, you're low in something or you're okay, this is even more dangerous if your doctor says, oh, no, your levels are fine. Keep in mind, they are gauging your levels against a sick population. They're gauging your level of vitamin D or whatever it is against other people who are also deficient. So if you're average, if they're like, oh yeah, you're pretty average, more than likely you're low because everybody else has issues. So you don't want their issues, you want it better. So look for doctors like the ones you're seeing here today. Look for doctors like Dr. Clapper and Dr. Goldner, who's going to come on later. You want integrative doctors. You want doctors who deal in integrative medicine and functional medicine, who understand how important everything is, how interconnected everything is. Not just they know about one specific body part, or they give you the answer of, oh, you're getting older. No, that doesn't have to be the case. The next one that is typically an issue is omega-3s, and that's because it comes from fish primarily, okay? Sea sources, but for meat eaters, they get it from fish. Now, this is an essential fatty acid, so that means that our bodies don't make it. So a lot of other nutrients, a lot of other substances, our bodies produce a certain amount of it on its own. This is one that our bodies cannot produce. We have to get it from our diet. And there's a few issues with this and why we don't have enough in our system that I'll go into, but this is important because it helps with gene expression. So again, as I was explaining, we have the ability not to change our DNA because our DNA is just hardwired, it is what it is, but we can flip those switches on and off. We literally can turn on or turn off genes for disease. So that's what we're referring to when we say gene expression. So it's very, very important in our heart, our eyes, but nerve function is a huge one with omega-3s, okay? Can lower cholesterol or triglycerides. So again, if you go to a doctor, they're not going to be looking at this. They're going to look at things and say, oh, you have, high cholesterol. Oh, well, get off of certain things. I mean, they're going to take you maybe off of butter, but they're not going to necessarily go to, oh, hey, maybe they have low omega-3s. Prevents arterial plaque, so obviously very important in heart disease and the impetus of heart disease. It is the building blocks for hormones. Increases neuronal growth, so to keep your brain healthy. Again, omega-3s are huge. These healthy fats are so vitally important to our brain health. Circulation of the cerebrum, so another part of the brain. So again, if we're low in omega-3, you're going to have a lot of neurological issues as it goes on and gets worse. Okay, it can even affect those genes that so many women are fearful of and getting breast cancer. So the BRCA genes and you want to suppress these tumors. So again, cancer. We see this over and over again. Like I said, these are deficiencies that have become epidemic, if not pandemic. So when you have a good amount of omega-3, it'll reduce your risk of lupus, eczema, RA, all these different things. Again, it helps with your mood, just like the vitamin D. So you're just going to be a happier person. Your memory is going to be better, obviously, because it affects your brain so much, and it's involved in metabolism. So it's going to be much easier to maintain a healthy weight when you've got a good amount of omega-3s. So what are some other sources outside of fish? We've got flax, chia, hemp, this is not going, walnuts, avocados, so healthy, healthy fats again. So green leafy vegetables, some oils, black currant oil, these different ones, and soy. Now, these are not the best sources, and I'll explain why. So the best plant sources are going to come from the ocean, just as the fish is the best source if you're a meat eater. So microalgae, seaweed, those are going to be your best sources, and here's why. There are different types of omegas, different types of omega-3 fatty acids. ALA and SDA are short-chain fatty acids. These are plant-based, so this is what you're going to find in all of those things I just mentioned, the walnuts and the flax and everything else. The problem is it has to be converted to EPA and DHA for our bodies to really use it, for it to be bioavailable, and for our systems to know what to do with it, and for it to be preventative for cancer and all kinds of diseases and brain health. As I said, it has a low conversion rate, okay? And it gets worse as we get older, and it's much worse in men. So another thing is we collectively get too much omega-6 in our diets. We eat, on the whole, as Americans, we eat too much packaged food, too much processed food, we get too much oil in our diet. That actually increases omega-6 levels, which decreases your omega-3s. So, or it's going to be harder to maintain those good omega-3 levels. So we want to get EPA and DHA. And this is one big mistake that I see people making. They'll say, oh, I got this supplement, but when I look at it, it's an ALA. So they're really not getting a lot of what they truly need. So you want the EPA and DHA, which is the long chain fatty acid. It's typically animal-based, required to prevent disease, obviously, and you want to get between 250 to 500 milligrams daily. There are plant sources, though. Okay, so there are supplements out there that are made, like I said, from microalgae, from seaweed sources. No, they don't taste fishy. They're not funky. They don't taste weird. Nordic Naturals is one that makes a really good DHA and EPA omega-3 fatty acid pill. Not expensive. Next one, B12. So here's the thing. We get B12 from bacteria. That's where the animals basically get it as well. They kind of make it in their system, but they would get it from the dirt, right? So they would get the bacteria that they would eat when they would eat the grass, and it converts in their body to the B12 that omnivores or none of us are really carnivores because we don't just only eat meat, but that's where omnivores would get it from. So this, again, hugely important. It's really important in our DNA synthesis. So obviously, we want our cells to be healthy. When our cells go rogue and crazy on us, that's when cancer develops. Keeps our blood cells healthy. It converts specific types of fatty acids to other fatty acids that we need in our system. It helps with hormone balance, so we women know how important that is. It's important in the myelin sheath, which is the protective, outer coating, essentially, of our nerve endings. So, when this starts going awry, we can have all kinds of pain and, nerve damage and issues. So it's going to help with, function, and it actually helps to form these these fibers in our brain and our neurological system and so forth. Increases energy, which pretty much all of these, everything I'm talking about is going to help you with energy. And it's going to improve your memory again, cognitive function. So, you know, we've had such an increase in Alzheimer's and dementia, and we really need to look at what we're consuming, because there's no reason for these diseases to skyrocket the way they have, right? I mean, human beings don't change physiologically that much from generation to generation. So it's something that we're doing. It's either something we're exposing ourselves to, something we're taking in. So it's going to actually help with macular degeneration. So I know a lot of doctors are going to say, oh no, you can't avoid macular degeneration. It's, you know, it's genetic. I mean, that's just their answer for everything, because they have never studied any of this. They don't look at the studies. They don't realize it, or most doctors, not the ones you're seeing here, but your average bear. Again, improves your mood. So, you know, is it any wonder that we have so many unhappy people, so many people on Prozac and miserable, when so many are deficient in all three of these, and all three of these prevent depression and help to improve mood? It's going to inhibit allergies and asthma. It does that, again, it's that inflammation. It's taking down the inflammation in our bodies. So it's so crucial to understand when we're eating an anti-inflammatory diet, we are literally preventing a, you know, plethora of diseases and illnesses. So, and obviously linked to autoimmune diseases and disorders, because that's what we have a lot of. When we become inflamed, you know, we have different autoimmune diseases, or that's the byproduct and the symptom of it. So here's some other sources. These are, again, plant-based sources, dulse, which is the little seaweed. You can get the little sprinkles, and it doesn't change the taste of your food. You can just sprinkle it into soup or on salads or whatever. Super easy to add to your diet. The reason I point out Red Star brand nutritional yeast, I will explain on the next slide, but they've done some testing, and really this is the only brand that you want to stick with until they've come out with new studies. Try to only use, if you're using this as your source of B12, okay? So you can get supplements and shots. Again, you want to make sure that they're vegan. You want to make sure the capsule is vegan, that it's not made from gelatin, you know, which is connective tissue from animals. And of course, they've, just like with the D, they fortify cereals and all kinds of stuff. But as I was saying, you've got these sources that people quote, but they're very unreliable, okay? People will talk about these different foods, different seasonings. Tamari is a seasoning like a soy sauce. Chlorella pills, spirulina. Okay, they're okay. Other brands of nutritional yeast are okay, but what they have found is that most of them have what they call analogs. So these analogs basically mimic the B12. So it's going to basically like jamming a lock, right? So you figure you've got a cell and you've got this nutrient that needs to get into the cell like a key into a lock. Well, if an analog is in that lock, the key can't go in. Right? It thinks there's already something in there. So your body is going to be tricked into thinking it has enough B12 because there's something in there that's similar, it looks similar to it, but it's not actually it. So your body's not actually getting what it needs. It just thinks it is. So you're going to end up deficient. So you want to get tested just to make sure that you actually are getting enough B12, you're not getting the analogs. This is not going. Okay, so what you want to do though is tell your doctor not to measure your B12. They want to measure your homocysteine and your methylmalonic acid. Just tell them MMA. Have them test that and see where it comes out. That's going to be your most true test of whether or not you are deficient in B12. And you want it to be at 350 micrograms per DL. I'll leave that up while you guys write that down. Oop, it's not working. Okay, so this is actually what I learned from Dr. Clapper when I took the courses that I did. And these are his recommendations. So he recommends you get about 5 micrograms from your daily diet. But he always recommends that everybody supplement. So he recommends a daily as well as a 1 time a week with a bigger punch. So about 100 micrograms daily. And sublingual is typically the best. You're going to absorb it the best. And then 2,000 micrograms once a week. So, and again, chewable or sublingual is what he recommends. So here's some early warning signs for you to look out for. Obviously, some aging. If you're just looking a little bit more tired than you think you should, some brain fog, not happy, you don't know why, there's like nothing, really going on with you. You don't really have a reason to be depressed, but you are. When you're tired, hair loss. Now, how many people in here either have gone to the doctor or know someone who's gone to the doctor with some of these symptoms, and then the doctor goes, well, how old are you? Well, it's kind of the way things go, right? They don't go to this. They don't look at any of this. They just assume. And we all know what assume stands for. Okay, so if you have wounds that aren't healing properly, these are all memory loss. These are all early warning signs. I'm going to share with you like the end of the road where you've got some issues. So, muscle pain. And of course, how many people go to the doctor? Oh, I'm a little sore. I've got some pain in my hip or when I walk. And of course, the doctor always, 9 times out of 10, unless you're going to an integrative medicine doctor who looks at the whole person, looks at everything about their lifestyle, they're going to tell you, well, that's, you're like 50, you're you're getting older. That's the kind of stuff that happens. Omega-3, huge trigger for asthma, again, because of the inflammation. So when we have good amounts of omega-3 fatty acids, the inflammation in our body goes down. So I had asthma. I struggled with asthma my entire life until I became plant-based. And now it's very rare. It's like, I had walking pneumonia a few weeks back, and it triggered it. But outside of that, it has completely cleared it up. And I'm not talking within years. I mean within like 3 to 4 months of me switching to a plant-based diet, my allergies and asthma disappeared. It was that fast. I couldn't have pets. I couldn't even go to other people's houses with animals. I would have to decline all the time if someone had an animal because I knew I would get sick for weeks on end. But now we have 3 dogs. One of them even sleeps in our bed. So, huge change. And I'm a massive animal lover. So to not have animals in my life was really painful for me. So it literally, this diet changed my life in every conceivable way. Again, depression, fatigue. So you guys seeing a pattern here, internal inflammation, right? So you're going to start suffering with not just asthma, but also arthritis. And again, the doctor is going to tell you, well, you're getting older, it's how it goes. And we'll give you some anti-inflammatories when, that's a chemical. Now you're putting a chemical in your body with side effects. Whereas you can just take down the inflammation naturally, just make some simple changes. And the side effects are that you feel incredible. I mean, you can either have that long list that they read off when you're watching the commercials at night, and they go, oh, it clears up eczema, but you could die, your head could explode. I mean, all these great side effects that nobody really wants, but they want to get rid of the initial issue, right? They just want the pain to stop. You can make it stop. It's so simple. It really is. So memory, again, vision, immune system. I mean, there's just such a pattern here. It's all connected. The B12, affects your vision, affects your fatigue level, your energy level. Sore tongue is when you really need to start paying attention, okay? This is when you really need to start looking at your B12 levels, because that's a bad sign if your tongue is sore. That's a sign that's going in the wrong direction. And then you're going to have numbness in your extremities, and you might even, not be real stable on your feet. You might have a little bit of a wobbly gait. So you want to look out for all of these. Now, long term, it's not good. Autoimmune disease. Anemia with B12, very dangerous. Okay. Calcium deficiency, cancer, cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative disease. I mean, the list goes on and on. Osteoporosis. Basically, everything that every one of us in this room either has or knows someone who has, right? I mean, I venture a guess that if everybody in this room held up their hand because they either have one of these issues or they have someone in their family or a friend with one of these issues, there wouldn't be anybody in this room without their hand up. This is epidemic, almost pandemic, okay? So dementia, diabetes, macular degeneration, but of course the doctors either blame it on age or they're going to blame it on your genetics. They're going to say, well, your mom had cancer, or your mom had heart disease. Well, guess what? Your mom ate animals. Your mom followed a diet that did not reduce inflammation, that did not put her gut bacteria back into a balanced state, that affected everything in her system. So we're not just, our genetics, we're living our parents' patterns. And I'm explaining tomorrow too about how it's not just about food. So again, you've got cancer in every single one of these. Is it any wonder that 1 out of every 3 women are diagnosed now with cancer? And 1 out of every 2 men? That's huge. Think about that. When it really hit me was when I realized that most of my friends, most of my peer group, my age, had cancer. They either have it or had it. When my parents were my age, their friends and family didn't have it at that age. This is something that's changed. We need to wake up. We need to realize we're doing this, okay? This isn't an outside influence. So, as you can see, there's so much crossover. So it could be any one of these that you're deficient in. It could be all 3 of these. Now, here's the big secret. I'm talking about this as a plant-based issue and becoming deficient because you're plant-based. The big secret is that meat eaters are deficient in all of these things too. Okay? They're deficient in vitamin D because the animals are not fed grass anymore. The animals don't graze. They're not out in the sun. Animals are raised in these massive warehouses where they never see light. They are never outside. They don't, just like we don't get sun anymore, the animals aren't getting sun. So they literally don't make the D3. So people who are eating animals and thinking that they're okay because, oh, well, I'm not vegan, so I must be okay. Not true. That's why we have these diseases widespread all over the world. The B12, again, these animals are not fed grass. They're not out grazing in a pasture. I don't care what they show you on the milk commercial. I don't care how they try to make the cow happy. The cow is not happy, okay? The cow is miserable. The cow is kept indoors and they are fed genetically modified grains. They are fed corn and soy. So for people who say, well, I avoid soy because I don't think it's good for me. Well, first of all, tomorrow I'm going to break that myth and tell you exactly why that's so wrong. But on top of that, you are eating soy. You just don't know it. It is in every fiber of that animal that you're consuming. And for omega-3s, the same is true because a lot of people don't like fish, right? So a lot of humans, they just don't consume fish or they don't consume it in enough quantity to get their omega-3 fatty acids up. I mean, I know I used to chase my brother when we were kids with a sardine because to this day, he can't even stand to smell fish. He won't let his wife have it in the house. The smell just makes him want to vomit. So he was so mean to me and such a horrible brother. So that was the only thing I could do to get back at him. So I would take the little sardines and chase him. So don't feel sorry for him. He deserved every single second. And we're filming this and I don't care. He's going to see it. So out of the room, out of the deal is what I say. But everyone is deficient in these three things. So clearly, we need to do better. But when someone approaches you and says, oh, I would go plant-based, but, there's these deficiencies, and you can develop this, you can develop that, tell them, how's it working for you? Are you 100% healthy as a meat eater? Most likely not, and if they're not, then, tell them, hey, give it a try. So, or show them, lead by example. One of the questions I get so often is, how can we help people to change their way of thinking and, to get them to look at this more closely? Just lead by example. Because when you walk into the room and you're looking good and you're feeling good and all of the rest of your friends and family are sick and they look unhealthy and miserable and they've got aches and pains, they're going to want what you've got. And that's when they're going to start to listen. That's when they're going to start opening their minds. So, calcium is another one that's really not talked about. And this one is a little bit tricky because it's not just a matter, like I said, of supplementing, okay? So the healthy foods, the plant foods that you're eating may actually be preventing you from absorbing calcium. So I'll explain that really quick. So calcium, obviously, very important for strong bones, strong teeth. It's also important for muscle contractions, regulates your heart rhythm. It's going to keep diabetes at bay by regulating your blood sugar, and obviously responsible for childhood growth because of the bone structure issues, increases energy again, reverses reflux. Okay, so many people suffer with reflux and they think there's nothing they can do about it, or they take antacids, which actually is worse for calcium. Prevents fractures. It's really important in cell signaling. So our cells are constantly talking to each other. They're constantly sending each other these signals, telling each other what to do and how to react and whether or not to go rogue and turn into an overgrowth and cancer. So hugely important in that. Blood clotting, important for, healthy blood pressure, cholesterol levels, reduces PMS. Who doesn't want that? Except for maybe the men, or maybe they want it too. They want it too. Yeah, I just realized they really want it more than us. So, and again, it helps with other nutrients, with other minerals in your body. So if your calcium levels are off, you're not going to have good levels of, healthy levels of magnesium and potassium. Magnesium is so, so key. It, to me, is like the unsung hero in disease prevention. So many people don't realize how important magnesium is and how crucial of a role it plays in disease. So, and again, cancer. Right? So people don't really think, you don't connect cancer and calcium, but they're very much connected. And primarily through, it's going to prevent the cells from growing into cancer, but it's also going to promote apoptosis, which is when your cancer cells spontaneously die. And we all want that, right? Because we're all just sitting here today. I'm standing here. We all have rogue cells in us. We all have cancer cells in us. It's whether or not it actually turns into full-blown cancer, whether or not we develop a tumor, okay? Or whether our system does what it's supposed to do. If our immune system kicks in and starts attacking it and killing it off, and sending it down, certain pathways in our body lead to disease, others lead to, why is the lights coming on? Others lead to health. So we want to promote the health pathways. So apoptosis is when cancer cells just die. They basically commit cell suicide. We want that. So we want healthy calcium levels. So women obviously are greater at risk. That's because we have, less muscle mass, less bone mass, but we all lose all of the, we lose bone mass as we get older, whether we're men or women. And postmenopausal women are at the highest amount of risk. So you want to really, really be careful about this. This is not working. Okay. So your top sources of calcium on a plant-based diet: almond, bok choy, broccoli, Chinese cabbage, collard greens, non-dairy milk, fortified juices, not the best. Try to get it from your leafy greens, from your beans. Those are going to be some of your best sources. Natto, this is a soybean. Sesame seeds, white beans. Oh, sorry, did I go too fast, guys? Let me go back. Oh dear. Went too far. This is what I do with the DVR. You went too far. Back it up. Speaking of backing it up, who's coming to the dance party tonight? Yee. You guys gonna do you guys know how to wobble? That's the important thing. Forget calcium. Does everybody know how to wobble? Okay, well, we're going to teach you how to wobble tonight. Yes. Thank you, Will. Okay, so I will leave these up. You guys can snap a picture of it, if it'll go. I'm sorry? As much as you can. I mean, ideally, you want to include these foods every single day. Okay, so what prevents this from being absorbed? If you have too little vitamin D, so again, this is all related, right? It's all connected. If you have too little of one thing, you're not going to be able to absorb something else. So you really have to maintain your health. Too much acid in your system. So again, Animal foods. Animal foods increase your acidity level. It increases, you become acidically or acidic in your pH levels, so you want to get that acid down with plant foods. If you have too little phosphorus, too little fluoride, which doesn't seem to be too much of an issue given our water supply, too little vitamin A. So again, right, if we're just consuming a whole foods plant-based diet, we're going to get all of these things in the proper amounts. Mother Nature is really smart. She is a smart woman. Vitamin K, if you have too little vitamin K, or again, magnesium, okay? The unsung hero. Magnesium is just, there's too little talk about this. I should write a whole book because I love magnesium. If you have too much alcohol, that's going to reduce your calcium levels. Caffeine, too much sodium, so you want to reduce, the amount of salt in your diet. A lot of medications are going to block your calcium absorption. These are the keys, okay? These next two are the ones that are really something that you need to know about. Phytic acid and oxalic acid. Okay, so steroids are notorious for blocking calcium absorption. Phytic acid is in the bran of whole foods. Okay, so it's in seeds, nuts, grains, soy isolates, the skin of beans, otherwise known as legumes. Okay, so these are naturally just in your plant foods, and the phytic acid can block your body from absorbing calcium, so you can end up deficient in these, or in calcium. It also binds to the calcium, okay? So that's primarily the way that it blocks it. So it's gonna bind to it and pull it out of your body. So rather than it being available to your body, for your body to use for what it needs, it's actually going to like encapsulate it and carry it out. Now, it'll bind to also all of these other minerals, the magnesium, the iron, the zinc, if they're in the same food, okay? It's not necessarily in the same meal, in the same food. Wheat bran reduces your calcium, but from other foods. So if you're having the wheat bran with another food that's high in calcium, it's going to reduce your absorption of the calcium from that other food. Oxalic acid, so as it says, high oxalate foods you want to keep an eye on. Not that you, and I want to be careful, you don't want to not eat these foods. These foods are really important for your health. They're really great plant foods. But you want to be sure, if you're having any issues, you want to be tested. You want to make sure that you are you're absorbing enough calcium, because it's not just what you eat, it's what you absorb that matters. So, if you're eating almonds, buckwheats, miso, the Swiss chard, spinach especially, raw. So you want to be careful about this. Again, it binds to calcium in the same foods. So spinach has great calcium, but the oxalic acid, it may prevent you from absorbing it. In oxalic acid, unlike phytic acid though, it's not going to prevent you from absorbing calcium from other foods that you consume at the same time. Oh, now that one wants to come up, sorry. I thought I had more because I remember saying about the antacids. So antacids, people take this again for reflux, and it lowers your calcium levels. And calcium is really important in reflux prevention. So it's just this really bad negative cycle. So here's how you can reduce these things. So you can cook food, which will absolutely destroy the phytic acid. Okay, so this is why raw food, raw vegans need to be very careful. It's only going to reduce the oxalic acid by up to about 15%, so it's not going to completely get rid of it. But again, not everybody's going to have this issue. So I don't want you walking away thinking, oh, I shouldn't eat any of these foods. I should never eat almonds. I should never eat spinach. They have huge, huge health benefits. So you want to consume them. You just want to make sure you're absorbing enough, that your levels are okay. Processing of foods. So a lot, if any of these foods are processed, it's automatically going to kill it. Not a great way to get your calcium, because you want to avoid processed food as much as possible. Fermenting foods. Now this is healthy. This is going to help with your microbiome, with your gut bacteria levels. So it's a good way if you can eat fermented foods, but obviously not every food can be fermented. And to increase your vitamin C. That's going to also help with calcium absorption. Sprouting and soaking. Okay, so you can actually soak your grains. Like it says, you want to soak them in the same amount of water that you're going to cook them in, but then you don't want to cook them in that same amount of water again, because then they're going to come out mushy. So you want to strain it into a measuring cup, and then when you cook them, you only want to add the amount of fluid that strained out of it. Does that make sense? So if you soak them in a cup, let's say, and when you strain it later that day or the next day and there's only a half a cup of fluid left, you want to cook it in the half a cup. Okay, otherwise they're just going to turn out mush. You can soak your beans overnight. Obviously, this is mostly for raw beans, right? Not the canned beans, which is just the better way to get them. So soak them overnight, 2-to-1 water ratio, obviously half a cup of beans, 2 cups of water, and then you want to discard it. You want to cook them in fresh water the next day, not that water that you soaked it in. So all of this is going to help to reduce the phytic acid. So again, know your numbers. Just get tested. If you're having any symptoms, make sure you go to the doctor, go to an integrative nutrition type of doctor, somebody who actually knows what you're talking about and doesn't look at you like you're crazy. But don't avoid these foods. They're really, really important. They have incredible nutrients, phytonutrients in them that you really, really want. So that is the basics. I know it was kind of boring, but I hope that it gave you good information. Good, because yeah, this is all stuff that when I became plant-based, I didn't know, right? And I was just kind of winging it. And luckily I didn't develop any deficiencies, and I went to school and got certified, fairly quickly, and learned all of this stuff, but it was such an eye-opener. So that is my presentation, and now for the really fun stuff. I am going to bring up now 4 people who are incredible.